What triggers a re-render in React? Senior interviews love this question because it separates people who think in terms of the DOM from people who understand the render and commit phases. A re-render is the component function running again to produce a new UI description. It is not the same thing as mutating the DOM. Most of the work happens in JavaScript during the render phase. The commit phase applies real DOM updates only when reconciliation finds a difference. The clearest trigger is local state from useState or useReducer. When you schedule an update, React compares the next state to the previous one using Object.is. For objects and arrays, that means reference identity. If React decides nothing changed, it can bail out and skip rendering that component and, in some cases, its descendants. Children re-render when props change, again, by identity. A brand new object or function literal on every parent render is a new prop reference, so the child re-renders even if the values look the same. That is why inline-style objects and inline callbacks are common performance footguns. Even without prop identity changing, when a parent re-renders, React still reruns child component functions by default. Memoization with React.memo, useMemo for stable props, or class pure component are the usual ways to opt out. Important nuance: the child may re-render while the DOM stays untouched. Reconciliation might conclude the output is identical. Context is another propagation path. When the provider value identity changes, every consumer re-renders. Putting a fresh object and value on each render is a classic source of surprise re-renders across large subtrees. A changed key is stronger than a normal re-render. It unmounts the old instance and mounts a new one. State resets, effects tear down and set up again. Force update on class components bypasses the normal model and is discouraged. For external stores, use sync external store ties a changing snapshot to a scheduled render. What does not trigger a render? Mutating ref.current, changing an ordinary local variable, or merely running an effect. Effects run after paint and do not cause renders unless they call setState. A DOM event only leads to a render if your handler updates state. In React 18 and later, multiple setState calls in the same event are batched into one render. In development, strict mode intentionally double invokes some render paths to surface impure render logic. That is expected, not a production bug. Remember, re-render means recalculate the UI description, DOM update means apply changes. They are related but not the same. For the interview, a re-render is triggered by state updates, context value identity changes, key changes, parent re-renders by default, or external store snapshots by use sync external store, and a re-render does not guarantee any DOM work. Mental model: when state, props, or context inputs change, the component function runs again. React then decides what actually needs to change in the tree. That is all for today. If this video helped you pin down what actually triggers a re-render in React and feel more confident in your next interview, hit the like button and subscribe. If you want to be able to explain React like this in an interview, check the link below. A new React deep dive drops every week. See you in the next one. Bye bye.